Hello, Perceptive Reader. This is James Lynch. I hope you are feeling well today. I hope your goals that you have set for the day, you are able to accomplish them. What I want to talk about is your freedom of worship. Your freedom of worship. You see, people have different ways and, of course, policies they carry out to run their businesses, to take care of their family, and of course, other matters. And those policies that they make for themselves, you see, uh, their choices, of course, a lot of that entails what they believe, even spiritually, when you agree with that as well. So, if a person has actually created their life, their way of functioning. Like, look, take the word honesty. Okay, take the word honesty. When you really think about uh, that word, it really does entail and be defined as someone who is really just a truthful individual, a sincere individual. And you will find talking with a lot of persons when you talk when you ask about why they do certain things, even in their own generosity. You may hear some of them say, "Well, the good Lord gave it to me, and I'm just trying to do the same thing, in imitation of the good Lord, or in imitation of the Spirit of God, Holy Spirit." See, it would have some type of spiritual aspects. So they're being motivated in their actions by what? Their own belief system. Because as you know, not everybody even believes in God. So if a person don't believe in God and they just have some other reasons why they do what they do, that is still maybe in some cases their own preference of worship and things of that nature. Just like some people have mentioned, even people who don't believe in God, they still believe in something, you see, and they can even be idols, etc. But I'm not getting into that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just to go to show you we have the freedom of worship. And as long as we are not breaking those ethical, you see, inhumane uh, conscience matters and laws of the land, we are pretty much able to, worship what we want to worship, be active in whatever we want to be active in, because that is our right, that is our choice, that is our even free will by God. Okay. So I wanted to share this with you because of the simple fact that there are also, I always use the word uh, ideologies. Uh, Other persons will mention philosophies where, they both still deal with the mind. And the thing about it is that can even still be considered what? Uh, Part of what makes up their own choices, their own worship, right? So here it is. If one person all of a sudden has an ideology or philosophy on this is the way you must do this or do that, then let me reference back to the word that we used before. It goes into the area of self-righteousness and arrogance, because of the simple fact it's not appreciating someone else's conscious somebody else's worship. You see what I'm saying? Their belief system, which is not really, that person isn't hurting anybody because of their belief system. But then someone coming along with their own ideology and things of that nature, then guess what happens? Yeah. They're starting to force their ideology, their philosophy, their belief system, their worship onto someone else. And to be really specific on this one, I'm talking about even when it gets into uh, a person's views on how you help an individual. See, that still gets all into the conscience and things of that nature. Uh, there are people who have uh, hurt us. See, how they say sometimes you're the villain in somebody's story or what have you. But I always told you before, and this is what I still continue to stand by because because I believe strongly in this. And I told you there's some people that I've known over the years, they couldn't stand that this is my view. But my point is, can I be respectfully said this is why in this area I say they have really been very harsh people, and going beyond being what some people would call them the name of being a bunch of jerks. But at the very least, I told you that they were really harsh people or a harsh person in the way they allowed their self-righteousness to go out, and in the effort of always saying to do something right, they would do some of the most mean-spirited and even hateful stuff that really goes to show it was more based on jealousy and envy, which, as you know, envy goes beyond jealousy. It's even worse than jealousy. And do you remember those podcasts where we talked about Cain and Abel? See, Cain wasn't just jealous. He was envious of Abel. So that meant he couldn't stand the relationship that his brother Abel had with the grand creator, Jehovah God in heaven. And he didn't even want him to have it. So since he couldn't even have a relationship with God on that level, even though God was telling him, if he got himself together, then hey, God would end up being pleased with him as well. But already, because Cain had this just evil seed that he was stirring around in his own heart and mind, and God warned him about it, all it did was make him even more upset, even more intent on taking even his brother. You see, not only taking or wanting what his brother had, but he wanted his brother out of there. You see, he wanted his brother out of there, and in this sick, murderous way, maybe just still thinking that, okay, I don't want him to have it either. You see? And so he did something about it, and he killed his own brother, Abel. Now, I want to mention this as a side note. When sometimes people say, keep this to yourself or keep that to yourself, whatever. Remember, I wrote this about within the past month or so. When there is a situation of like a brother killing a brother like Abel, then justice can't be silent. Why can't it be silent? Because that brother, like Abel, blood ends up crying out for justice. And that's, see, one of those things that God hears. And so in this case, justice can't be silent, you see? And that's what the Bible shows us. And so getting right back to the thought about ideology, okay, and philosophies and things of that nature. As I mentioned before, just because other people sometimes can't get over their own spirit, if you will, of the way that they always just want to be starting something, then it doesn't mean that the individuals who walk away in peace have anything that they have to deal with. You know, one person mentioned more than once about, but this gave you trauma in this area or that area. And so, okay, if it did, so what is this whole thing of talking about addressing this and that? The Bible clearly shows there are tons of messed up and broken relationships that are just irreconcilable. Irreconcilable. And what I mean by that, when you're dealing with some of these individuals, you see, if they got the love of God in their heart, then they're reconcilable. But if they sit up there and just still have hate in them with the way that they deal with certain matters, you see what I'm saying? Then why are you going to allow these certain individuals to continue to so-called traumatize the person who was abused in this situation or that situation even more? See, this is where I tell you about your worship and your belief system. Because I'm here to tell you today, perceptive reader, what I've had to deal with over the years with some of these different philosophies, even from people who would have even doctorates in this area. Okay, I'll listen to what some of them say in this area, that area. And yet it still goes into what they believe to be true, but it doesn't matter in this case whether I have some type of degree in this area or not. Why? Because my spiritual degree taught by God and his word, the Holy Bible, is still what I'm moved from and what I act on. So I can be respectful and say, okay, yeah, you have knowledge and stuff in this area, but let me tell you, my knowledge in this area as well really clearly shows, respectfully, they were wrong in this type of teaching. They were wrong in this type of way. And I'm going to tell you about also so-called trauma and things of this nature. There's been cases throughout the years where, you know, let's say a person was robbed. Okay, a person was robbed. And the individual who was actually robbed found out who stole this or stole that from them or what have you. And that person was mad and was crying for justice and all this other stuff. And so what happened is there have been persons who not only had deep pockets, but was sincerely just generous. And they had more of a background story or understanding of the whole situation, even the robber, if you will. And so what they did was they asked the person who was robbed, okay, what is it that person took from you? Okay. And then the person related, this is what was stolen. And you see what I'm saying? Or what have you. And so then the persons who were generous, and I want to assure you in this case, this is not what you would be considered like a regular payoff. No, like sometimes there's other terms, but no, that's not what it was. What it was is, again, from their own compassion of their heart, these persons who had the deep pockets, they wanted to not only help restore what the person lost, but then gave them in abundance, some extra for their time, you see, for the pain and suffering, so to speak. And so then the thing about it is, persons who had, an appreciation for just what was restored and this and that, guess what? The person went about their business. And then there were some individuals that later found out this person may have still gone, and next thing you know, went on a vendetta against the person that they feel robbed from them, hurt them, or what have you, even though it really wasn't necessary at all. And so in some cases, the person had mentioned, if this is what you still went on ahead and did, then what you told me about all you wanted was your money back, and then I gave you that much more, it goes to show that you still just wanted to pick a fight with somebody. Now, this is the way generous persons have helped others over the years. Where did they get that principle from? Well, there's an account in the Bible similar to this that Jesus talked about. And it's very much applicable. Very much applicable. Do you think you can figure out exactly what that account is that Jesus was talking about? See, so that's my belief system. And so you have other persons with other belief systems that are like, they would do all sorts of other stuff that, again, where I say, okay, well, you being self-righteous and you being arrogant in the way that you are insisting on doing this situation and carrying out this situation. You see what I'm talking about, perceptive reader? And I'm going to tell you something else. Remember, there have been persons with these degrees as well, that what I just explained to you, it took them some time, some years, but guess what? They, at least, well, I know of one in particular, but I'm sure that person is not the only one now, came to the conclusion, with all their great intellect and background, you see what I'm talking about? They came to the conclusion, with what I just described to you was accurate, as far as, yeah, in this case, it is showing, well, they used another word for it. But my whole point is, it was God who already taught it. And there are a lot of persons who have used the same type of method, if you will. And it doesn't always have to deal with money, but I use it because I know a lot of people recognize that. But see, it still really boils down to whether they got a Cain-like spirit that want to sit up there, insist, and do all this other stuff, literally just to try to destroy somebody else's life. Again, talking about they doing something right and they're not. Or whether they really got a spirit and understand their heart in this matter, like Jesus and the God in heaven does. So anyway, take care of yourself, perceptive reader. Have a wonderful day.